Hello, welcome back to Hazel Jane Tarot. Today we are here to talk about the Gaian Tarot by Joanna Powell Colbert. I have not one, not two, but three different versions of this deck, and today I'm going to be giving you a really thorough review of the Gaian Tarot, showing you the different editions, the way the deck is structured and how it works, and sharing some of my thoughts about this deck. This is the only tarot deck that I have more than one copy of, so that maybe tells you something. This is a deck that you'll have heard me talk about before when I've talked about sort of my journey with tarot, because this was only the second tarot deck I ever got, and it was the first of the kind of current phase of being into tarot. I had one deck from the late 90s until I don't know, sometime in the last sort of 10 years I got this one, and that sort of started things off again. But so this deck has been quite important to my personal tarot journey, and it also comes up a lot when I'm talking about my favourite decks and so on, because I really do love this deck. So I thought the time had come to give a proper review of the Gaian Tarot. So what you can see here is the Schiffer edition. I'll see if I can zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole box. So this is the currently available mass market edition of the Gaian Tarot, and it is, as I said, published by Schiffer. It is a really nice package that they've put together, but the blue borders that you can see on the box are maybe the sort of one drawback on this deck, and I'll show you that in a little bit. So that's the currently available mass market edition. I had a wee look there today. In the UK, that's selling at around £22–24 on Amazon and the likes. So this edition then is the Llewellyn edition. This was also a mass market printing, but it is now out of print. I was very lucky. I found this in a shop in England for sale and bought it for £25. I had a little look there today on eBay. People are selling this as a second-hand out of print deck for around £130. So I got really, really lucky to find this, and this is my favourite edition, I think, of the deck. I also recently purchased directly from Joanna Powell Colbert herself this limited edition. This one, as you can see, I have 985 of 1,000. I believe there are only a few left, so it came wrapped in this, tied in this little gold ribbon in this bag. This is available, I think still there are some left, from Joanna's website, which I'll link below. This cost $147. So in terms of the price that people are charging for a secondhand out of print Llewellyn edition and what you can buy directly from Joanna for this limited edition, the prices is quite similar. So hopefully by seeing both of these, it'll give you a bit of an idea what you get. But this edition, the mass market edition, is also really great, and I'll give you a wee look at them properly now in a wee minute. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So the Gaian Tarot is conceived, created and illustrated by Joanna Powell Colbert. I don't know Joanna, but I've interacted with her a number of times on social media. She comes across as incredibly gracious, and I have, really enjoyed her, the interactions with her I've had on social media. She is resident, I believe, in sort of the northwest of America. And so this is the book that comes with the Gaian Tarot mass market Schiffer edition, and it comes in this this style of a box. I don't like this style of box with the two sections, so I'll just put that away. But as you can see, it's like a hinged box and magnetic closure, so it looks nice on your shelf with the way the side of it is illustrated and so on. So these are the cards from the Schiffer edition. And this, as I say, this was the very first deck I got in my most recent round of being in love with tarot, and only my second ever deck. So after I'd had this for a while, I found out that the Llewellyn edition existed, and I was so lucky when I came across it. I keep it in this little bag. And these are the cards for the Llewellyn edition. So you can straight away see that these are smaller, and the art is smaller, but they don't have the large blue borders. And the special edition, you can see once again these are much bigger and also don't have the blue borders. So I'll maybe spend just a little bit of time comparing the editions first before I go into the actual deck itself and the structure of the deck and the illustrations and so on. So personally, I really don't like the blue borders on the mass market edition, on the Schiffer edition. Obviously, they've done this to make it different from the previous Llewellyn printing, but I don't really feel that they add to the deck having these big blue borders. The deck is gilded with a sort of a silver gilding, as you can see. I do know some people have trimmed this deck to remove the blue borders, but then you lose the gilding as well. But you could completely trim it down into the white borders and sort of make it more similar size to this. You can also see in the back design that the border has been added to the back design as well. So if you bought the Schiffer mass market edition and trimmed it, you actually wouldn't even be damaging your back design, because you could trim off the border on all sides anyway. The Schiffer cards are a little bit glossy. If you can see there in the light, they are a little bit glossy and they catch the light. They're a nice enough cardstock, flexible. I don't really have a huge problem with the gloss finish. The main thing that I dislike about the Schiffer edition is the blue borders, but otherwise it's a really nice deck. Like the gilding and the cardstock, I don't even mind the gloss because they fan out quite nicely. You can see I've shuffled this a lot, so you can see I overhand shuffle. The silver edging and the sort of the edge of the cards have got a bit dinged up, but I have had this for quite a long time and have used it a lot, so that is not altogether surprising. So the cards then for the Llewellyn edition, say they're much smaller. If you see that in my hand, they are about to compare to a sort of standard tarot card size. The Llewellyn is about the same height, slightly shorter than a standard tarot size, but wider. Whereas you can see the Schiffer card is a lot bigger. Even if you took off the blue borders, you know, the Schiffer card is still quite a bit bigger than the Llewellyn card. And then the independent special edition is quite a lot larger. Like those are as big as my entire hand. So it depends on really what you like and what you're willing to pay, which edition you would like to have. But I have to say the Schiffer edition, while it does get a lot of criticism, is worth getting for the money, I think, because the deck itself is wonderful, as we will see in a minute. The Llewellyn cardstock is nice. There's no gilding or anything on that deck. And then the special edition again is nice cardstock. This is very matte. There's a very slight sheen from the ink printing, whatever way the ink is printed onto the cards. Depends on the colour. The darker colours create a tiny little bit of sheen. And again, this is a very matte card as well, the Llewellyn edition, but it's maybe got a slight sort of silk finish to it, like it takes reflects the light a little tiny bit. Okay, I won't go into the sort of different boxes and books just yet. I think I'll save that till later because I really want to start to show you the deck now. So let's have a look at the major arcana. So the Gaian Tarot is very much sort of focused on themes of community and our relationship with the earth. And the depictions of the cards they center people mostly, but they also bring in plant and animal life. And most cards and the descriptions of the cards in the book include plants and animals that have been chosen to work with the meaning of the card, as well as the sort of narrative depiction of the scene and so on with the people in it. Not every card has people in it, but most do. Some cards have been renamed, and as you can see here we have the Seeker instead of the Fool as key 0, and there has been, Joanna has changed around the gender of the people depicted in a number of cards to create more gender balance than what you get in the Rider-Waite-Smith. So here we have, as you can see, a female Fool. One of the things I love about this rendition of the Fool is, rather than it being a very, like the Fool in the Rider-Waite-Smith is sort of jumping off the cliff and we have no idea what awaits them. Here we have, a sort of considered looking ahead at the challenges ahead and deciding to take that first step. I probably won't have time to talk about every card in loads of detail, but then we have the Magician, and I love this Magician. So we have like a ceremonial drummer. I love the joy in his face, and you have a lot of the elements that you would remember from the Rider-Waite-Smith, where you have the lemniscate above his head, and you have the 4 elements depicted here. But you also have sort of this just different energy. I think I really like the kind of active, joyful energy in this Magician card. Then we have the High Priestess. It's absolutely gorgeous High Priestess, where she's half maiden, half crone. This statue is from Malta, sort of sleeping goddess statue from Malta, which I know because I've been to the museum where that statue is original, is in Malta. So you can see again, the black and white pillars, the veil. Joanna has used a lot of the elements that you might be familiar with from the Rider-Waite-Smith, but changed it, So we have the salmon for wisdom and the owl. She's brought in different elements. One of my favourite empresses of all time, the gardener. The abundance of the crops. I know some people don't enjoy a pregnant empress, but I like this one. And then the Emperor, instead we have the Builder. For the Hierophant we have the Teacher. And for the Lovers we have this couple. I really love this Lovers card because while this couple don't really look like me and my partner, they are more like me and my partner than any other lovers I've ever seen. Like, he's a beardy, blonde-haired guy, and I'm a curvy brunette. So this, I really appreciate this card. When people talk about, can I see myself in the tarot, this is probably the card that most closely makes me go, oh, look, that's like us. So in the guidebook for the deck explains the symbolism of each of the animals, birds, plants that you see in the images. So for the Chariot, we have the canoe, which is a little bit of a different take. Strength. The Hermit. I love this Hermit. Look at you can see in the wind, the wolf. The wheel. So lovely depiction of the wheel. We have the 4 seasons and the 4 different trees. We have the phases of the moon. We have the astrological calendar, the signs around the edges. Justice. And you can see the concerns of this deck reflected in the depiction of justice, the endangered species of plants and animals that are depicted alongside, the weighing of the heart against the feather, which we often see in the justice card. The tree instead of the hanged man or the hanged one. I love the shift in perspective that we see here. Death. So you can really see death, decay, and then the growth of new life. Temperance. Bindweed. So this is the Devil, and this is one of my favourite cards in this deck. It's so powerful. So the posture of this character really speaks to me, of the feeling of that can be brought across in the Devil card. And then here we have the bindweed plant, which is described in the guidebook as an invasive species that takes over, and takes over the area where it grows, and crowds out native plants and so on. And the birds that are depicted as well, I think they might be starlings, but I'd have to double check the book again. But again, the idea of invasive species that crowd out native animals and become too much of it is overwhelming and damaging to the environment, and that then is symbolic of some of the dynamics that can be reflected with the Devil card. So really a very powerful card. Then for the Tower, we have lightning. Beautiful star. One of my favourite depictions of the moon. Very different from the kind of, where we get the meanings sometimes associated with the moon of, things being hidden in the sense of deception, or seeing the moon as in a negative light, as some depictions do. This depiction for me is very much about getting in tune with the rhythms of the moon, the cycle of the moon with the woman's menstrual cycle, and so on. The Sun, I love this card. I've often said I want to be this woman. I want to feel the way she feels. I love how joyful and open and warm this card is. The colours, it's just wonderful. And maybe more of us can relate to this than the baby on the horse depiction of the sun. But I love this card. This Schiffer edition, I tend not to read with since I've had the Llewellyn edition, and I sometimes use these cards for a focus or as an energy I want to bring in, that I might display the card. And this sun card is one that I have displayed a lot in my home. I sometimes have had this card displayed all year as an energy I want to bring in. I just adore that. Then Awakening instead of Judgment. Now this card is interesting because this entrance here looks like Brunabonja or Newgrange, which is a tomb in Ireland. and a very important, very ancient site in Ireland that's about 5,000 years old, I think slightly older than the pyramids. So I think that's what's being depicted here, and I quite like that. And then we have for the world, Gaia. So that is the major arcana, and as you can see, they're very similar to what you'd be used to from other decks, but they have some renamed and some slightly different energies by shifting the focus to being a little bit more about the earth and about our relationship with the earth. So I think next I want to show you the court cards, and I'm going to use this slightly smaller Llewellyn edition to show you the court cards. So the courts in the Gaian Tarot have all been renamed, and the renaming really works for me. I actually tend to find that Joanna's interpretations of the court cards stay with me when I'm working with other decks, and I very often kind of have this system of thinking about the court cards in the back of my mind. So I must make sure I mention, actually, these images are not photographs. These are colour pencil illustrations. Now, I believe that there was photograph modelling done as the basis for the cards initially. Like the scenes were sort of modelled and set up and photographed, and then Joanna drew these images with colour pencil, and that they just blow me away. Like the water in that image, it just I have no words for how impressed I am by the artistry and the execution of this deck. You will be maybe familiar with this artist also from the Herb Crafter's Tarot, because she did all the illustrations for it as well. Okay, so as you can see, the pages in the Gaian Tarot are child. They're children. So we have the child of earth, the child of water, the child of fire, and the child of air. And when I set them out like that, you can see the element is really clearly depicted in each card as well. So this is a deck that, rather than dealing with cups and pentacles and swords, we have simplified things further down to just the element, and the elements are very strongly depicted throughout the suit. So the attitude of a child is, and the attitude of a child and how it applies to the suit is very much sort of what we're working with here. So just to have a look at the guidebook for you. So we have children as the pages represent learning, wondering, beginning, new possibilities. The child is shown encountering a symbol of his or her suit for the first time, a butterfly, the flames of a campfire, a starfish at the tide line. These children remind us of a sense of wonder we felt the first time we encountered the natural world close up. So that sort of energy is what you're working with the children as the pages. Then we move into the explorer for the night. So you can see from the way these are depicted, again, the element is very clearly visible, and the explorer is taking a risk, taking action, moving into the world. The book describes the explorers as seeking challenges or being driven by a quest. The explorer is actively engaged in discovering the qualities of his or her suit. So the page was encountering the quality of the element for the first time, but now the explorer is really actively engaged with exploring the potential of the suit. They are climbing high, spinning fire, surfing. The explorers are at a time in their lives when they are investigating options. They haven't quite chosen their life path or passion yet. So that's the energy of the night. And then we move in for Queens. to the Guardian. And what you might have noticed is that across the 4 suits, Joanna has been quite careful. Instead of having all male pages, all male knights, all female queens, and all male kings, she has 2 males and 2 females for each of the ranks. And then within each suit, you would find within, say, the suit of Earth, you have 2 male and 2 female between the 4 cards of the court. So it creates balance. So we have the Guardian of Earth, the Guardian of Water. Oh, I love her. She's so compassionate. You know, she's so open and welcoming. The Guardian of Fire and the Guardian of Air. Now, of these cards, the one that for me has shifted meaning the most is the Guardian of Fire, where the Queen of Wands, you might be used to. To me, the Queen of Wands is the performer, the one who's out in front, out on stage, very charismatic. Here we have the Guardian of Fire as the one who keeps the fire burning, who nurtures the fire for others, to keep everyone warm, to bring everyone together. So it's a slightly different interpretation of the Queen of Wands or the Guardian of Fire. The Guardian of Air, I mean, her eyes just look right into your soul. She is not going to be telling you any untruths. She is going to tell you the truth. But the way each of these is shown to be nurturing the suit that they pertain to, I think it works really, really well. And then we have for the kings, we have the elders. So the Elder of Earth, the Elder of Water, the Elder of Fire, and the Elder of Air. So while the Guardians show a sort of mature adult, protecting and nurturing and focused on the community, the elders then show the people, the wisdom holders, who are able to give counsel to the rest of the people in the community. So we have in the book, the elder passes on the wisdom and teachings of his or her suit. They play peaceful music, practice the arts of healing and magic, listen to the dawn's secrets, transform wool into yarn. Elders give counsel and take the long view. They are concerned with the wisdom of the ancestors and preparing the way for descendants yet to come. The elders here are all 70 years or older, whereas the guardians are all depicted at midlife in their 40s, 50s and 60s. So people talk a lot about diversity in tarot decks, and in terms of age diversity, the Gaian tarot is very consciously depicting a broad range of ages. So just to show you like a full suit together. So you can see how across the suit you see the aging of the characters, and we have a mix of male and female across the four aspects of the court. So I love the court cards in this deck. So that's how the court cards work. Now I want to show you the minor arcana, and I should probably use this deck a little bit. So let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the minor arcana, and just start off by showing you the aces together here. So we have the different decks. As you can see, there are no people in the aces. So Joanna has used animals and plants to illustrate the idea of the potential of the element in each suit, so sort of beginning energy. So we have the butterfly coming out of the cocoon in the Ace of Air. We have the little, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say foal, but that's the wrong word. The fawn, and the unfurling ferns in the Ace of Earth. We have the snake being born out of the egg in the Ace of Fire. And then we have the newly hatched salmon who've spawned in the Ace of Water. So we have the potential of each suit. So the book says the aces depict the birth of creatures who correspond to each element. The ace begins the first of 3 triads in the number cards. So she thinks of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. She groups them in threes. The energy of an ace is similar to the energy of a new moon. It is more than a beginning. It also holds within itself the whole. So that's just a few wee snippets from the guidebook, but gives you an idea of the approach of this deck. So the numerology and the elements are really key. So you'll see that they are similar to, but not the same as the Rider-Waite-Smith. I'm actually going to use this one and flick through the pentacles and show you them alongside the Rider-Waite-Smith so you can see the similarities and differences. So this is my Blushing Fool Rider-Waite-Smith that I'm looking at here. So you can see in the Two of Pentacles, we have this idea of juggling and balancing different things, but it's put into a really relatable real world context. I absolutely adore this Two of Earth. To me, I can see a dad with twins standing in the greengrocers trying to pick what to buy for dinner and trying to juggle, you know, the crying child and I just love their facial expressions. So you get the basic idea of the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, but translated into a relatable modern context. And then once again, we have with the Three of Earth, being Three of Pentacles, we have collaboration, the creation of art, the creation of something new together. Maybe we talk sometimes about, you know, somebody commissioning the art, somebody, you know, then the sculptor who's creating the art and so on. Whereas here we have in the Three of Earth, we have 3 women working together, creating maybe tinctures or other, you know, kind of herbal medicines from the earth. So the connection with earth is really explicit in the herbs that they're using. And then we have the collaboration and the working together of the 3. And it's just so joyous. I love it. Then for the Four of Earth, we have one of these cards that doesn't include any people. So the idea of, you know, the miser in the Four of Pentacles, husbanding your resources very closely. We have here a squirrel gathering their resources for the winter. And then the Five of Earth, we are into the winter, and, you know, person depicted as outside of just like in the Five of Pentacles, we are outside of the church. In the Five of Earth, we can see the person is outside. They're out in the forest. They're trying to survive. But one of the things that I like in this depiction is you can see the person is surviving. They are managing. They're using their resources, their knowledge to survive the night out in the wilds of the forest. So I think that's kind of, while it's quite a bleak image, it's hopeful at the same time that you've got what you need to survive. Then in the Six of Earth, we have this change in dynamic where the Six of Pentacles is a very charitable card. Then here we have more of a transactional relationship. You know, that's not so much, the people here are not of different statuses. Like in the Six of Pentacles, there's a very clear hierarchy, whereas in the Six of Earth and the Gaian Tarot, the people are more equal and the transaction is balanced. In fact, it's taken me a really long time to figure out which side is I'm still not quite sure who is the seller and who is the purchaser in this market scene. Because of the way the baskets are tilted, I always assumed the person on this side was the customer. but then there are more people on the other side, so maybe they're the customers. But it just shows you sort of the equality between the people and the transactions that are being depicted in the Sixth of Earth in this deck. Then in the Seven of Earth, there are similarities. You know, the planting of a new plant, maybe trying to regenerate an area of forest or something like that. The Eight of Earth is a little bit different. Instead of this idea of the apprentice working alone, trying to learn their trade and having to work really hard, here we have the dynamic of a teacher and an apprentice or student, and the idea of generations and passing down knowledge between generations, which I really like. The Nine of Earth, apparently this is a self-portrait of Joanna herself. So standing in the field of lavender. It's hard to believe that's not a photograph, isn't it? It's so beautiful. So the Nine of Pentacles, gorgeous. And then for the 10, there's a slightly different idea of generations depicted here, because it's to do with the growth in the forest. I'll see if I can find what she says about that particular card, because it is really quite different. So the 10 of Earth, we have, in the deep forest, we come across a nurse stump, a tree that has fallen during a storm or been cut down, and as the log decays, it provides fertile ground for new growth to take root in its dying body. Insects and fungi hurry along the decomposition process. Squirrels and other creatures perch or roost there, adding food scraps and scat to the rich humus. Soon moss, ferns and mushrooms appear, and seedlings of new trees. Many years later, you will see full-grown trees whose roots have grown over one of the nurse stumps or logs. In the background, an elderly gentleman walks the forest path through the dappled shade and sunshine, heading for the spot that opens up into the light. So do we pass along our wisdom to the next generation, that they might flourish as we pass on. So one of the things I really enjoy about the guidebook for the Gaian Tarot is, as you can see from what I just read out, Joanna explains the thinking behind the image really clearly, and she explains what the different things are, the elements she's included in the image, that really helps you understand this interpretation, especially if you're maybe more familiar with the Rider-Waite-Smith or decks that are more directly clones of the Rider-Waite-Smith. It can help you understand the new take on things. So I'm not going to go through alongside the Rider-Waite-Smith the whole time. I'm just going to now show you the rest of the minor arcana. So we have the Two of Air, and there's this lovely idea of, you know, listening to your instincts, listening to your intuition, and the communication from nature of the bird song. The Three of Air, the Three of Swords. Now this is a little bit different. You can see here, this person actually has pulled the Three of Swords from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and they are journaling. So to me, this is more about how we process the feelings and the thoughts associated with the Three of Swords. The Four of Air, the idea of rest, protection, the eggs being protected in the nest. The Five of Air. So the conflict is being portrayed here with the eagles. The Six of Air. Now this is, the air suit is quite different. So here we have people coming together in worship in different ways. And one of the things in the guidebook, it's organized by, it's organized numerologically rather than by suit. So you can see the sixes focus on community, reciprocity, and peak experience. So this Six of Air is described as a community awakens and sings up the sun together with prayer, song, and drumming. As we gather with others of like mind at festivals or on retreat, we gain perspective and insight into the big soulful issues of our lives. As we set our intent together in ceremonial space, the power to change our personal planetary lives is magnified. So this is quite different than the people in the boat, you know. Then the Seven of Air. Again, quite different from the Rider-Waite-Smith, where you might be familiar with the person sneaking off with all the swords. So sevens here are associated with being focused on a goal. And we have the hiker has paused on his journey to consult his map and consider his destination. He needs to make plans for the next stage. Will he climb the mountain or follow down the river into the valley, and so on. So the cards, you can't really read these cards as you would read the Rider-Waite-Smith. It is its own system. The Eight of Air, eights here are about taking action, transforming vision into reality. And here in the Eight of Air, we have a small group of people sit in circle holding counsel. One man holds a talking piece and speaks while the others listen. Perhaps they are planning a political action. And then she expands on that a little bit further in the guidebook. Then the Nine of Air, this speaks to me very much of the ideas of the Nine of Swords that we'd be familiar with, of nightmares and distress. So the nines here are associated with solitude, mastery and wisdom. And here we have the 9 in the book. It says, a woman is grieving on a much deeper soul level than the distress of the 3 of Air. Storm clouds billow behind her, mirroring her inner turmoil. She has gone to a sacred spot. She goes deep into a trance, letting her sorrow ground into the body of the earth. And with her inner vision, she sees the face of she who watches. And she explains in a note that she who watches is a petroglyph found near the Columbia River on the border of Washington and Oregon. So there you go. And then the 10 of Air, instead of the 10 of Swords, again, very different from what you might be used to from the Rider-Waite-Smith. And this is for transition. So we have themes of transition, transformation, endings and beginnings. And this card depicts Canada geese flying during the fall migration. So the suit of fire then. So this is switching back to the Llewellyn edition. So we have the little snake being born. Now this card, the 2 of Fire, is the only one that's different between the different editions. Let me just find the 2 of Fire to show you. In the Independent edition, the illustration is slightly different, but the idea is the same. So we have this sort of heat and passion and potential of what is, you know, these 2 people have come together and what is going to happen, you know, what is going to ignite between them. I actually had posted about this recently on Instagram, and Joanna responded and explained why these images are different, which is, I think, just an example of Joanna's just been so gracious in every interaction with her that I've had. So she explained that this particular image was based on a photograph, and whenever the deck was picked up by Llewellyn for publication, she had to get any photographs that images had been based on licensed by the photographer. And in this particular case, the photographer had asked quite a high fee. And I think Joanna said in her comment, misunderstanding how much money tarot deck creators would make, that they had asked for a higher fee than they were able to pay for the photograph. So for the Llewellyn edition, and subsequently for the Schiffer edition, it stays the same as this one. She reposed and redid the image with her own models so that they wouldn't, because they were being held back from printing because they couldn't get the licensing for this particular image. So this remains in the Independent special edition production, but for the mass market editions, we have this image instead, which I also really like. So the 2 of Fire. Then we have the 3 of Fire. And in the fire suit, there's a lot of performance, a lot of music, a lot of dance, and of people really stepping into their power, their talents, you know, and sharing and displaying them with the world. The 4 of Fire, I love this card. She's so grounded and strong and powerful. The 5 of Fire, you know, very much taking a risk, The Six of Fire. So the victory card, here we have community together, drumming and playing, but the dancer is really the central focus. She's being celebrated, but also everyone is collaborating together as well. I love that. And then the Seven of Fire. So you have the industry, in the book it says the blacksmith stands at her forge, raising her hammer high. The scent of rain-soaked autumn wood mixes with the pungent aroma of burning coal and hot metal. The smith's heartbeat races as she pounds the glowing iron bar into the shape she desires. It takes much strength and determination to bend iron to your will. The smith wears an amulet in the shape of Thor's hammer Mjolnir around her neck. She draws on the power of the god of thunder as sparks and lightning fly from her hammer. She knows nothing can keep her from accomplishing her desire. Love that card. And then the Eight of Fire, instead of rods flying through the air, we have comets. The Nine of Fire, a little bit different from the Nine of Wands, which tends to, when I pull the Nine of Wands from a Rider-Waite-Smith base deck, it tends to speak to me of illness and stress and, of you're just about hanging in there by your fingernails, whereas this is a much more balanced and strong image. The book says a man has retreated to a red rock cave, a sacred spot where energies gather to replenish his own life force. He seats in meditation and the Kundalini serpent begins to rise. He is radiant with inner fire connected to heaven and earth. And that he is a being of light as well as a being of flesh, blood and bone. So quite different from the Rider-Waite-Smith. And then the Ten of Fire, we have this forest fire and the danger and the overwhelm of, forest fire gets out of control. It can just be devastating. Whereas some degree of burning in fire in forests and certain types of forests can generate new life and help seeds to grow. So, the danger of the fire is really strong in this Ten of Fire, I think. And then moving on finally to the Suit of Water. So we have the Ace, as I've showed you before. Then the Two of Water. So normally we see like a couple getting married or something like that. And here we have a person with their animal and the lovely heart connection, and the tattoo on the heart chakra is just gorgeous. Three of Water, instead of three women with cups, we have these playful otters. Lovely. The Four of Water, so I understand this is a chalice well at Glastonbury. I have not had the opportunity to go there yet myself. Then the Five of Water, Five of Cups. The Six of Water, so the women coming together in celebration. Love that. The Seven of Water. So this is kind of a little bit of a slightly different take from the Rider-Waite-Smith. We see all the 7 cups with the different things in them. Here the person has chosen. They've chosen a cup. So that evolves the meaning slightly. The Eight of Water, the Eight of Cups. We have, this idea of somebody taking the high road and leaving all their cups behind. Here we have someone swimming against the current. The Nine of Water. I love that. Something very moving and quite spiritual about that. I can almost smell that card, if you know what I mean. The salt water in the cave, the cool air. And then we have the Ten of Water. So this is quite different from what you might be used to. The Ten of Cups, you think of seeing, the happy family and the rainbow. And here we have something quite different. So I'll see what it says in the book for you. The Ten of Water. The salmon, the cycle, descent and return is one of the most inspiring stories found in nature. Whether you approach it as pure science or as a spiritual metaphor, baby salmon are born in freshwater streams, swim downriver to the sea where they grow to adulthood. If they are not eaten or caught by fishermen, they make their way back upriver to the same stream where they were born, where they turn bright red colour as they spawn, laying eggs that will become the next generation, and then they die, their bodies rot, and what isn't picked over by birds is composted into the soil, returning it into the fertile ground. So she has taken a different slant there on the 10 of Cups than what you might be used to. So this deck does, I feel, have to be read for its own self. You can get a certain, you can get so far with imposing the Rider-Waite-Smith meanings onto it, but you really have to read the book and kind of appreciate the deck for its own self to really get the most out of it. So just on the subject of books, the book content for each of the editions is the same. So just to show you the 3 books that I have. So this book came with the independent edition, and this has been signed and dedicated by the writer, so you can see that. But the content of the book is exactly the same. It's a really nicely presented book. It's all in black and white. But yeah, it's a lovely book. In the Llewellyn edition, this is the book. It's a slightly less well formatted book. It's a little bit, it's a little bit plainer. It doesn't have illustration. It's in black and white again. The actual text content is the same, but the formatting is just not as attractive, but you get exactly the same information. The only colour book of the 3 is the one that comes with the Schiffer edition. And again, the content is the same, but it's a nicely formatted and in colour book. So just to give you an example, what you get for a Major Arcana card, there's the description of the card itself and the way she's illustrated. Then there's divinatory meanings if you get the card in a reading. There is a reversal meaning, a shadow side. And then for the Major Arcana, she breaks it down even further, looking at the symbols that have been used throughout the image, which I really appreciate because I love that sort of granular drilling down into the image and the symbolism. And then we have journaling questions to work with if you were to pull that card. And then finally, there's an affirmation for each card. So the Major Arcana, she's got a lot of information for each card. Then when you get to the minors, as I say, it's structured numerologically and rather than by suit. So she talks about the elements and the numbers. And then for each one, you'll get the, so overall the aces, what does ace stand for? And then there's 1 page for each of the ace of fire, ace of water, ace of earth. And then we have 2s, what do 2s stand for? And so on. And there's a page for each of the minor cards. And equally for the court cards, there's slightly more than a page, so the pagination gets a little bit different. So it's not just 1 page each when you move into the court cards, but there's an affirmation for each court card as well. Sorry, there's an affirmation for every single card. So even for the minors, we get the card description, the divinatory meaning, the reversal meaning, and an affirmation. So it's a great book, whichever version of the book you get. The content, as I said, is the same, but this one is the one that has the sort of, the most colour and so on. So, as I said, the Schiffer edition comes in that hard hinged box. The Llewellyn edition comes in this box, which is quite large and sort of strange. So we have this big box, and then there was this insert, like this little card box. So you kind of, you end up sitting your deck, on there, like sort of in this little insert, and then the book slides down in front, which to me is not a practical storage solution. So this box lives behind my sofa, and the deck I keep in a little tarot bag. And then the independent edition, as I showed you at the beginning, it came just the book and the deck in this little organza bag, and there was no box. So, phew, I have been talking for 55 minutes. And I hope I have given you a good overview of this deck. It is one of the most wonderful tarot decks, and as I'm sure is very obvious, it is one of my favourite tarot decks, if not my very favourite tarot deck. It's, as I said, there's these three different editions available. If you're interested in getting the deck, this one is the most easily available and the cheapest, as the mass market edition. Published by Schiffer, this is the edition that is available from Joanna Pyle Colbert herself, and the link is below. And then this one, as it's out of print, is the one that you have to sort of keep an eye on eBay for, and sometimes you might come across it. So thank you for watching. If you love the Gaian Tarot, if you work with the Gaian Tarot, I would love to hear your thoughts about it below. Yeah, just thank you if you've made it all the way to the end of this hour-long video. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, I will see you back here again soon.